Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dawn of Drones podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. Great to see you out there. We are almost to a conclusion of an incredible month dedicated to developing industry leaders and sponsored by Skydio. So thank you, Skydio, for that. Really appreciate you. We have an incredible guest with us here today. Jasmine LeFlore is the co-founder and the executive director of Greater Than Tech, a nonprofit that is dedicated to inspiring the next generation of diverse leaders for this industry. So welcome, Jasmine.
Hi, Dawn. Thank you for having me. I appreciate being on your show today. Thank you.
Absolutely. And you see the Volatus logo there. Wanted to thank Volatus Aerospace. Jasmine is appearing here today as a Volatus Above and Beyond series guest. So for those that don't know about Volatus, I don't know where you've been because they've been everywhere. And we really appreciate Volatus for philanthropically endowing so many incredible guests this year on the podcast. So thank you to Volatus as well. So by the way, everybody, just a quick reminder, we are live, so jump in the chat, say hello to Jasmine, ask her your questions, give her positive encouragement. We love all of that. And we're going to just jump right in, Jasmine. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, yeah. So thank you for the introduction, and thank you, Volatus Aerospace, and everybody that's joining today. A little bit about myself. I mean, I feel like I can spend the whole podcast talking about myself, but born and raised from Flint, Michigan, used to live by airport, always had an interest in planes, pursued a degree in aerospace engineering, and worked at a really great company, currently Raytheon Technologies, also known as Collins Aerospace. Started my career there as a project engineer, so was able to see a lot of great things like how components come together, how manufacturing works, how quality is a huge part of how well a company operates. And then being able to go to San Diego, where I've been for 5 years, same company, but different business unit, looking at different products, and was able to do some supplier management type of roles, able to work as a chief of staff for the VP of engineering. So just seeing more about the business side and how Collins Aerospace Raytheon Technology does work, but then pursuing a master's in business, pursuing a master's in engineering, and entering a startup competition just off a whim with my co-founder of Greater Than Tech. And that was when I realized, oh, engineers can be entrepreneurs. I could do this. So around the time when we applied to the startup competition, we actually made it to the semifinalists. And that's when we were able to do a 2-day camp called From Seed Spot, where that's where we launched Greater Than Tech. So my co-founder and I, her name is Brittany Wheeler, also an engineer at Collins Aerospace. We were robotics instructors on the side, just like helping girls with building robots. So we were already in the community doing work. So we pretty much said, hey, we're already engineers, we're already in the community, we're learning about entrepreneurship, let's do this thing and let's make Greater Than Tech, because we feel like we want girls and we want underserved students to know that they can define their own path in tech, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a corporation. They can make their own corporation or their own technology if they want.
Well, wow. And you're right, Jasmine. We could absolutely spend this entire show peeling back your background and everything you just said. But I want to focus on Greater Than Tech. So first of all, incredible background, wealth of experience. This idea that you out of the gate became an aerospace engineer. I know how hard that is because I have a son that at least started that degree, and I'm not sure how that's going to go because, I mean, no joke. I mean, that is really, really difficult, rigor, academic rigor to get that kind of degree. And then like on the side, you and Dr. Wheeler, Brittany Wheeler, you mentioned, we're going to talk about her in a second, just decide, hey, in our spare time, we're going to like create this thing called Greater Than Tech. So let's talk about Dr. Wheeler first, and then we'll talk about Greater Than Tech. So you got to know her maybe as part of your work and forged an alliance, and we're both inspired to create this company. So tell us a little bit about Brittany.
Yeah, so like I said, Brittany also works at Collins Aerospace, and that's where we met. But we met through employee resource groups, so like an affinity group, diversity, equity, inclusion in the workplace. She started the first employee resource group in San Diego. I moved to San Diego, so we were like kind of the dream team doing diversity, equity, inclusion work, which also made us have some type of like footprint in the community where we're going to colleges and helping them with resume workshops. We were going to schools and talking to them about engineering careers. So in a lot of ways, we were doing like work in the community through Collins Aerospace employee resource groups. And Dr. Wheeler, very passionate about diversity, equity, inclusion. I would say that she is more of the one that always got more attached to the kids. So like she always wanted to do things that were like, we need to take them out. We need to do this. So she really helped bring in like the self-efficacy piece of what Greater Than Tech is about. And I would say like I would get really riled up anytime she have a good idea. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So we were just kind of like, let's build this thing. We're already doing it. We don't really know what we're doing, but we know enough to help these students. So Brittany and I kind of transferred our skills from employee resource groups to a nonprofit organization. And it's in a lot of ways what we were already doing. So we just kept at it.
Well, okay, wow. I love all of that. And Jasmine, I think you know that I work with Women in Drones and the Diversity Development Network of Canada. Just to kind of tag on to what you said, we did, everybody, just launch our second annual UAS AAM Industry Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Survey. So please, please, please go out and take that. So you can find that on the Women in Drones website. Frankly, I have to update my website to include that as well. But one thing we learned from doing that, Jasmine, and probably no shock to you, right, is this industry, when I say this, aerospace in general, aerospace and defense even more so, but and it transfers over to the UAS and AAM communities, lacks diversity. And so that's probably a great segue to talk then about why you created Greater Than Tech. You alluded to it, but kind of what were you trying to achieve? What problem were you trying to solve with creating this organization?
Yeah, no, great question. So I feel like there were a lot of different layers with us creating this. One, we're both women, women of color in aerospace. So being one of few seeing who looks like us. Two, we saw a lot of initiatives for STEM, but not necessarily a lot that were catered to underserved girls or, just underserved communities. And then three, we were robotics instructors for a middle school girls team, and we were preparing them for this like robotics competition. The competition was primarily filled with high school boys, boys from like affluent neighborhoods. So being able to get like middle school girls to, want to show up in this arena and compete with people who, have more resources than them and kind of know a little bit more, it was a little defeating because the girls work so hard and they didn't really have that background and that, a lifestyle where their parents knew about engineering, their parents knew about STEM, so they were feeling behind and a little self-conscious about the robot that they built. So we felt like, there's more that we can teach them about STEM and engineering, and bring it to an entrepreneurship level where we're not just preparing for competitions anymore. We're having them demonstrate the type of tech that they want to create, or like just put a different lens or different angle on what STEM is all about. So we felt like we're not preparing you guys for competitions anymore. We're just gonna do what we want and like show you how tech can be for real world applicability, not just let's build a robot to collect points. And then I'll say for the drone space specifically, we've launched this track of careers programs where it's all about emerging technology for high school girls. As you know, with drones, you can get your pilot's license at 16. So we feel like, that's a very low barrier to entry. This is a wide open space for more diverse women, for more women in general. So let's teach them now that there is so much possibility here and give them the ability to like want to go down this path.
Well, that's awesome. And you mentioned a term, I believe it was self-efficacy. And I know, unlike so many other groups, companies, organizations, you put your core values out there, you put three core pillars. Self-efficacy is one of your three core pillars. Can you talk to us a little bit about what those pillars are and why you created them?
Yes. So self-efficacy is a big one because we want students to see that like their experiences that they've already had and been through can transfer to other goals and objectives that they're trying to meet. So for me, for example, I'm from a home where my parents divorced when I was in the fifth grade, and we had a lot of financial struggles. I was first in family to go away to school. I was first to do a lot of different things from a career standpoint. On top of like I've had a lot of personal adversity. I lost my mom in the my junior year of college and my two grandparents. So I feel like I was able to get through a lot of hard times just as a younger person, and how me having that experience can help me kind of bulldoze through other experiences in my life. Like, hey, if I can get through that, all of this is easy, right? Like,
Yeah.
just being able to build off those experiences that you've already had and say, hey, if I can do this, I can do that. If I can do this, I can do that. So that's really where the self-efficacy piece comes in. I think in a lot of ways, kids aren't able to connect with professionals if they can't see themselves in them. So
Yeah.
like being able to say to the students, hey, like I lived in a women's shelter when I was in the fifth grade. Like, hey, my parents divorced when I was in the fifth grade. Like, life pretty much, got crazy after that. So, if they can understand that, then they can think, then they can see, oh, she's an aerospace engineer, she's a rocket scientist. Oh, if she can get through that, I can do that. I grew up like that. So, just being able to, connect with them in a more personal way. Our other pillars about social impact and engineering entrepreneurship, basically how can we use tech as a force for good? How can we say that, we want to teach them the hard skills. We want to teach them about drones. We want to teach them about code, but we also want you to know how it could be used for improving people's lives. So all of our programs have that social impact lens. And then the entrepreneurship part is, we want them to envision themselves as founders, as owners, as people who are decision makers. So it's always STEM and it's always tech, but we want them to see themselves as entrepreneurs, co-founders, people who are building something for the first time.
You're, I know this is going to sound corny, but you're actually giving me chills right now because, I mean, like, seriously, this is about developing industry leaders. And I love that you've created essentially a leadership model around what you're trying to achieve with STEM. And the other thing I want to say, Jasmine, is thank you for sharing some of those personal, so many personal things with us here, because it's that vulnerability, I think, that absolutely right, that inspires other people and shows them that, like, hey, we all have challenges in our lives, and if I can do this, like, you can do this. I know that's something that Sharon Rossmark all the time says as Women in Drones, like, if you can see me, you can be me. And I love that we can see you, Jasmine, and so thank you for everything you're doing, like, seriously. I want to talk a little bit about your programs because you've got so many things going on. You started with middle school girls. You talked about coaching robotics teams, but felt that that really wasn't the path you wanted to take with Greater Than Tech. And so, can you walk us through, like, and there's a lot, right? So you have, I'm gonna like laser this in for us. Like, tell us about your Greater Than Tech. You have a thing called the Greater Than Tech community, or the GTT community.
Yeah.
Tell us what that is and what that's all about.
Okay. Yeah. So I would say the framework of our program pretty much started with that, like, let's build engineering and business together. Let's show how these two things are applicable. I think with me having a dual master's in engineering and business, I saw the applicability, and I'm like, hey, if I knew about business at an earlier age or how engineering applied to the real world, then like I think that just is the type of problem solving I think kids should have exposure to.
Right.
So we started off with this framework. It's basically the business model canvas, but we added some engineering elements. And with that framework, we can apply it to any technology, and we can apply it to any type of group. So like the community part happened because after I did Girl Meets Drone, there were a lot of organizations reaching out and saying, hey, we want something like this. This seems cool. This seems fun. So we were able to give programs or do programs to other groups who had kids. And it was, not necessarily always girls, not necessarily always middle school, but they enjoyed the programs and they found it valuable, and we had fun and found it valuable as well. So that to us was, hey, we'll make a Greater Than Tech program for your community. So that one started with like drone programs for other organizations, but like I said, we work with multiple different technologies. So like we done a community robotics program where we went to 3 schools who didn't have a STEM program, didn't have a robotics program, and we pretty much built a robotics program for them. So how I was talking about the robotics competition that Dr. Wheeler and I were preparing middle school girls for, this was like 2018. We pretty much took the best parts of that and said, hey, instead of it being a competition, let's make it a demo day. Let's make it a community robotics program where students, I like to call them first time techies, like students who may not have done STEM before can actually learn how to do it in an environment that's comfortable for them because everybody's on the same page, and first timers, but also not making it about counting points, making it about, hey, if you could build a robot, what would it be for? So we had like 10 teams from middle schools build robots for businesses such as like helping disabled farmers, helping the military
Wow.
pass out food. So they're thinking about these innovative solutions at like 12 years old
Oh my
because they
gosh.
that
Helping
like
disabled farmers with robots, and these are middle school
they're
kids. Holy
yeah,
shnikes, that's
they're
amazing.
inspired.
And I love that you made it not about a competition, that you made it about, again, this goes back to your core pillars. You really are kind of walking that talk of this is what we're about, this is what they need to be about, and kind of shaping your programs to be that. Tell me about the Girl Meets Drone program, though, because I think some of our listeners out there, and by the way, I know y'all are out there, so let us know where you're from, and put something in the chat, because I know Jasmine would love to answer your questions, even how to get plugged into her efforts, things like this. But the Girl Meets Drones, I think, for those that are out there and follow you on LinkedIn, which by the way everybody should anyway. I've seen posts about that, and probably other people have. So tell us what that program is and how that kind of fits into your overarching framework.
Yeah, so Girl Me Strong. So to the point of, I'll say, the different paths or different types of programs. So we have GTT Community, GTT Careers. Careers is for high school girls, and then GTT Club geared towards middle school girls. So Girl Me Strong would be a a careers program, and it's really tied to the emerging technology of drones. And think of it as an exploratory 4-day program where girls are going through this framework. We're using the Rise Tello drone to teach them about, one, just drone mechanics and safety, but we're putting them in groups. Hey, you guys are co-founders. Who wants to be the business lead? Who wants to be the design lead? They're coming up with different drone, I'll say, design enhancements. So like, oh, if you had a drone business, what type of features would you want your drone to have? And then who would it serve and what industry? So Grow Me Strong, very similar in nature with the social impact, where girls were coming up with ideas that drones could be used for, like let's make a drone to sow seeds in the in a inhabited area so people can have more trees and fruits. Let's use drones for weather tracking and to help people know when a hurricane or something is happening in their area. So just all these different type of aspects that drones can be used for, but
Yep.
in a lot of ways it's like their original ideas and like something that's very possible, but putting them in that type of social impact mindset versus like the nooks and crannies of the mechanisms about drones. Although that's very important, but it's very like comprehensive and holistic, that 4-day program. And the idea there is to like kind of bring them into that space, that headspace of like, hey, I can do this. Oh, this is possible. And then bring them to another organization where they can actually get their drone license and kind of go down the path. So think of us as like, we're just gonna throw this like, immersive scenario at you,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
the ones that want to continue dig deeper and really understand like the rules of the road or the rules of the sky,
Yeah.
we know where to take you next.
Well, I think that's a great, I don't want to call it a pipeline program necessarily. I do want to talk about your career. So you almost have, in a way, created this pipeline model. I think it's actually brilliant to throw out this idea of you tell us what you'd want to use this thing for, like get them really imagineering and
Yes.
seeing themselves in it, and then like getting really excited about it. Okay, and by the way, you can actually do that. Here's a couple companies that are doing it. Here's how easy it is to get your license. And oh, by the way, now we've got this career path. Let's talk
Yeah.
about that in a second, to link you up with this company. By the way, Jasmine, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, Don Bershoff from True Weather is probably jumping out of his seat because he's the weather drone guy, right? Like he's the sensor guy. And then also Black Swift Technologies, Dr. Jack Elston, and the crazy beyond visual line of sight stuff he's doing with weather and his drones into volcanoes and hurricanes. And I mean, just I'm just listening to you, and I'd love to talk to you offline about maybe connecting with some of these companies later. But I also want to give thank you for people out in the chat. Sheila Bugby is out there saying, challenge our future leaders. We love everything about that. And Anthony Williams says, awesome. Keep motivating them, Jasmine. So thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Anthony, for your positive encouragement. Really appreciate that, and appreciate your willingness to jump into the chat here today. So very cool. But this is maybe a great, I know you've got so many other programs, but I want to talk about this kind of career part of your framework and how that works, because I think it is critical from the Girl Meets Drones to kind of this program that maybe I'm jumping ahead too far. Let's talk about the licensure part of this before we jump into the career part. So
Okay.
tell me a little bit about what that is and how that works.
Yes. So the licensing part, I would say, two ways that we're doing this locally in San Diego. So there's a really great organization called Elementary Institute of Science. So they do a program called Girls Take Flight. So in my mind, your first time seeing drones might be a Girl Meets Drone. You want to continue, you'll probably go to EIS's Girls Take Flight. And then I would say step three, which also is an opportunity for girls to get licensed, is the drone project with our genetic legacy, where the girls are going to do a 1 year apprenticeship program. Some of them will be getting their license in that program, but they are using drones as a tool to build a virtual museum. So they're going to be using LiDAR drones, getting real world experience and social impact, but being able to, at the end of July, say, look at what all the artifacts, look at all the things that we found and curated and created to honor BIPOC ancestors, making a virtual museum. So using drones as a tool, using drones as a force for good. So it's almost like step one, step two, step three. You'll probably see me in step one and step three.
All right. So step two, you have a partner organization, you said, that you
Yeah,
send people to. I don't want to gloss over this second kind of, you said, year-long internship essentially.
yeah.
Before we dig a little, no pun intended, dig a little bit deeper into that one. You use an acronym BIPOC, and not everybody may know what that means. I'm very sensitive to acronyms as a former military person.
Got it.
So, because we use them all the time, we just assume everybody knows what we're talking about.
Right.
So can you explain the acronym, and then let's talk a little bit deeper about this other internship program, because it's new and it's a big deal. So go ahead,
Yes.
please.
Yes. So BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, People of Color. And I do see in the chat, yes, Girls Take Flight is instructed by Desi. So yes, the drone diva, she is the one at EIS getting those girls their drone licenses. So it's basically a group of 18 girls in the drone project. So the apprenticeship program I'm mentioning, they're all Black, Indigenous, People of Color, and there's a crew of 16 of them going through this program where they're going to go to the Julian Cemetery. They're going to do some LiDAR drone mapping there. They're going to meet and talk to some, potential ancestors of those who are at Julian. They're going to come up with, what type of artifacts that they want in their museum to be able to talk about, the life and legacy of people who were at Julian, and come up with a virtual museum to like display that. So, and they're also going to do that at Nate Harrison Ranch in May of 2026.
Wow. Okay, so what's the historical significance of Julian, that cemetery in particular?
So Julian Cemetery is, it was a predominantly Black city or town, and there's a lot of history where I think the Julian Hotel was owned by a Black couple, and there's a lot of like, history in terms of like what it is today, and who's there today. So like just being able for them to see that type of dynamic or that type of history.
Yeah.
And then Nate Harrison Ranch, there's a lot of stories about Nate Harrison, who he was, his life. So I think just being in California, there's a lot of talk about, what reparations look like, or what, the real history of California looks like. So I
Hmm.
think this project will dive a lot deeper. Miss Shelley Baxter of Our Genetic Legacy, she is a genealogist, so she's really the one bringing in that historical narrative and language and teaching the girls about that part. And I would say the part I'm playing in this role is really helping with that curriculum development, that program structure on, what the girls are learning and doing.
So many things to love about that. Again, walking the talk on social impact, but also the cross-disciplinary nature of this. When you think, I'm just thinking with an academic hat on, how well, not only they're digging into archaeology, they're digging into history, sociology, obviously aerospace engineering, mechanical engineering, probably computer science, if they're having to code those drones. So wowza. So that's amazing. And I believe there's something, can you tell us? We like to have a lot of firsts on our show. So I feel like there's a first thing happening maybe this weekend about that particular internship you could maybe tell us
Yeah.
about?
So there's a kickoff event this Saturday where the girls are going to be getting their commemorative items for the first time. They're doing a photo shoot. There's going to be a few stakeholders there, some of our funders, where they can meet and greet the girls. They can learn more about the project and the program. So that's this Saturday. I can put that information out there. I have to get the information from Miss Shelley Baxter. She's the one leading all of that, but it's going to be a really great event where the girls can actually, meet some of the people who are interested in learning more about them and seeing what they're going to do in the next year.
Well, that's wow. I can't wait to follow this project because it's really unique. And using LiDAR, holy shnikes. I mean, there's so many drone pilots out there that like professional drone pilots that aren't even using LiDAR yet. So I think that's absolutely
Yeah.
incredible.
And
Uh,
actually, I don't know if you know Tawny Smith, but she's the one
yes.
that them with the flight test, and Dan from Modus AI, he's going to be the one donating and helping with the LiDAR technology.
From Modus, Modus AI.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, interesting. I'm working with modal AI, so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't getting
Oh,
confused.
wait, maybe
Uh,
I pronounced it wrong.
Modal AI is they create the Voxel 2 autopilot system. I don't know if it's the same company, but
They're based in San Diego.
yeah, I think that's the okay. Well, awesome. I just did an article about Blue UAS and kind of what they're doing. And who was the first person you said?
Tawny Smith.
Tani. Okay. Yeah. So Tani is going to be on this podcast next month for market use cases talking about drone as a first responder. So with her
Oh.
Flying Lion. So I'm really excited. So Tani's amazing too. I can't wait to have her on here. So let's talk about the greater than tech careers kind of part of your framework. So we're talking almost about this three-part process if someone's kind of following through this pipeline. What is careers and what does that look like?
Yes, so careers is for high school girls. It looks like them working with emerging technology. We focus on emerging technology because a lot of times there's low barrier to entry. A lot of times there's like, just a lot of development and a lot of white space in terms of like, potential IP, potential, discovery. So we want them to be on those cutting edge technologies where they can have a chance to dive deeper and be a like pioneer or a someone on the forefront. And the last one we just did was Girl Meets Additive Manufacturing. So
Wow.
additive manufacturing is like 3D printing. A lot of large companies, aerospace, medical, consumer goods, are now using additive manufacturing for their products instead of having to do that traditional, production line and, people and labor where they have to like make all those parts by hand. So, what it looks like to 3D print metal or 3D print, all these different materials, and how designing for additive manufacturing is a lot different than just designing. So we taught the girls how to do 3D CAD or computer aided design. They were able to go to a startup and see a tour and actually do a structural test on one of their designs. So again, very immersive, very much social impact, giving them a scenario about pedestrian bridges and how there's this pedestrian bridge that people are advocating for in San Diego. Mission trails, there's been a lot of accidents, there's been a lot of things there. So just allowing them to see, hey, this is something that we kind of need. What would it look like to actually have a 3D printed bridge? So putting their mindset there, and similar framework, right? This is the exploratory phase. It's a 4-day camp, and hey, if you're interested, if you want to learn more about this, we know who to partner with, so you can keep learning and keep getting into that space of additive manufacturing.
I love the immersive nature of this because, I was talking to somebody the other day mentioning some of the work I do and some of the other companies that I work with. And this person, made a comment like, well, and it was a woman, even if I had been exposed to it, I don't think I'd be really into it. I'm like, how could you? Well, you don't know that because were never exposed to it. And I just remember, Jasmine, when I was in high school, I had a biology teacher. He took us out into the woods behind the school and he made us do this project about groundhogs. Like we had to count all the holes that we could find, do the research to figure out at this time of year, is it mating season, is it not? To just estimate like how many, but again, it got us outside, it got us like looking, thinking, and it was so fun and cool. It wasn't like sitting in biology class, like memorizing like bones or like the names of different parts of the body or something. It really got us fired up. And what you're doing, I think, just showing girls like, oh, here's how you do CAD. I mean, holy shnikes. And let's think about building this bridge 3D, with a 3D printer. What does that look like?
Yeah.
So just, I love everything you're doing, and I thank you for it because I didn't have, and I think so many people don't have like someone like you coming into their lives, like showing them, opening their eyes, like these are possibilities. And so we need to actually 3D print and clone you so we can have more Jasmine everywhere to like bring these things to people. And there's so many great people, right? I know you may be familiar with Tony Reed, right, with his drone cadets out there in New York. And he was on the show last month. So many people doing great and inspirational things to inspire them. I can't wait to see this next generation because, just the things they're being exposed to that so many in mine were not, I think is amazing. And with this emerging technology, by the way, Jasmine, Chris Wedgeworth is out there. He is a regular. He said he's listening at work again. So thank you, Chris. And Sheila is making a bunch of comments in here. By the way, it was Desi Eckstein. For those that don't know Desi, we call her the Drone Diva. She runs that Girls Take Flight program Jasmine mentioned, and we love Desi, and she's a big women in drones advocate and member of Women in Drones. And then Sheila's just aghast that you're doing genealogy too. Like she just loves that. So who wouldn't, right? So
To your point about having the experience earlier on, your biology teacher,
yep.
Feel like I'm very blessed and lucky to be an engineer because I did have opportunities like that. I did do a CAD program when I was in the 11th grade, and I learned
Wow.
about 2D design, and I was able to get an internship when I was a senior in high school. I did an engineering camp also my 11th grade year. So I say that to say I was able to become an engineer because I had a lot of different STEM experiences that I had to search out and look for. So it feels really good to be able to know what happened and worked for me and be able to create similar opportunities or improved opportunities to show, hey, if you get these skills, you can, be employed and have an apprenticeship or get an internship. But oh, by the way, you can think about entrepreneurship as well. So I feel like I'm a testimony of hey, get involved earlier on as a kid because there are a lot of great things out there.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, Jasmine, I think you're kind of a very unique and special person. Like, I don't know how many kids would go out of their way to seek out engineering programs, right? Like at a young age. No, seriously. Especially ones that didn't, like you said, have those role models in their lives of like, I've got an engineer in my family, or I have a neighbor that's, like, so, I think maybe from that would be so wow, that's just amazing that you did that. Not every So I love that you're bringing it to people so they don't have to necessarily search it out, because
Yeah.
I think you're kind of a rare type leader out
Thank
there,
you.
and obviously that started at a very young age for you. So there's so much to cover. We've got like 10 minutes, Jasmine. We're not going to cover everything. So what I want to do is throw it back to you, because you've got like this tech outside the box. You've got the Lemon Grove Academy Middle School and all the things you're doing with them, and so many other things. I want to make sure that we're going to cover in these next 10 minutes the things that you want to highlight for our audience out there, and that I don't miss anything important. So, which of all of the different things, and you've got so many going on, what do you want to talk about next?
Ooh, put me on the spot there. I could talk about so many different things.
Well, what about this tech outside the box? Is that one that
Well, I would say Tech Outside the Box is our framework. So when I talk about like the business model canvas and how we throw in those engineering elements, that's also a 1 week camp. That's kind of like our standardized, like, hey, we work with different groups and do a camp like that, but we switch out whatever that technology looks like. So
yeah.
Tech Outside the Box is kind of like what is our, I'll say, core program, but we just
Okay.
apply it in different ways. So like Tech Outside the Box was actually our very first MVP, minimal viable product. So 2020, literally before the shutdown, March 14th, 2020 was when Dr. Brittany Wheeler and I did our like first program that was Tech Outside the Box, and we said, hey, we're going to give you a existing technology. We gave these 8 girls a remote control and said, what would you do to improve or update this? And oh, by the way, we're going to give you these little like design features, which are upgrades. And they were like pipe cleaners, they were like cardboard boxes, just things to add on to that
Yeah.
remote. It's like
Yeah.
this very scrappy way of like what we're doing today when we actually have like tech and hardware.
Yeah.
But we had girls come up with ideas which would be like a remote improvement, but like the design upgrades were like pipe cleaners and things like that. So just it was innovation. It was talking about who would want that type of remote, who would want to be, who does it serve. So it's kind of like tech outside the box, I would say, is what launched it all. And we still
Wow.
use those methods, but just more improved.
Okay, amazing. So you've got so many of these things going on. How can people get involved in your efforts, whether as a volunteer or otherwise as an instructor? You've got a number of these camps. There's companies out there that may be listening that might say, "Hey, I'd love to set up an internship with your girls or your students,
Yeah.
Jasmine." So how do people do that?
Yeah, so one, you can check out our website, www.greaterthantech.org. We have our contact email, a sheet you can fill out and say, hey, what you're looking for. We have a volunteer form there, but also follow me on LinkedIn, connect with me here. I'm also on Twitter. Check out our Instagram, greaterthantech.sd. And we're actually coming up with ways to get more instructors currently. So if there's people who want to help with the kids, we have a whole package on how you can connect and like teach. But also always looking for donors, always looking for sponsors, people who want to work with us, people who want to give our students tours to some of these emerging technologies. So there's a myriad of ways that people can get involved. You just got to contact us and, get in touch.
So you said you're in San Diego. You're originally from Flint, Michigan. Are most of your activities then in the San Diego area, or have you branched out like across
Yeah.
California? Yeah.
Yeah, most of our activities are in San Diego. We put a big emphasis on like hands-on experiences. So as much as we can get them in person, the better. But we are doing GTT Club, which I don't know if we've talked about that one yet, Don, but that is pretty much the online community building component of our program. So where it's more about like guest speakers coming in to talk to the students, the girls being able to connect with each other. It was really cool seeing the last girls we worked with for Girl Meets Additive Manufacturing. A lot of them met each other for the first time and became friends. So making sure that the students are keeping that connection with each other, but just being able to like have some informal conversations about life and self-efficacy and career goals where that would be students connecting online. So for those who want to be a part of GTT Club, that would be the online part where you can be anywhere and work with us there.
Well, that's great because COVID or not, just to be able to connect people from across, not just the state, but you could probably connect them globally, right? I mean, if you're online, I mean that's what I'm noticing with Clubhouse when we do that, and of course, just through LinkedIn, we've got followers all over the world listening to what you're saying, and so. As I'm listening to you, it occurs to me that Skydio, who's our sponsor this month, they're very much also into trying to inspire girls to become drone pilots in particular, and they're not too far, probably a 4-hour drive or so.
Yeah,
But I'd love to link you up with Anna
that would be
Wiesenthal
amazing.
Birch. Yeah, because they're working with a school up near them, and they're putting together an internship program and things like that. So there could be a really great connection to be made there, since you're not too far. But maybe something that could maybe start a spark there. So we'll have to follow up on that. But so do you like attend in-person events? There's so many conferences, Jasmine. You're not just drone, but robotics, other groups. Are
Yeah.
you going to be out and about where people can meet you in person, that are like maybe the viewers that are listening?
Yeah. So it's funny you say that. I am starting to do some speaking engagements. I always consider myself a generalist. So my bachelor's in aerospace, my master's in engineering is interdisciplinary engineering. So I'm always kind of like in the mix of different types of technologies. So that said, I've connected with people in additive manufacturing, obviously in drones. We have some other pathways we're launching, but in the next month, I'll be speaking at a Women's Venture Summit and talking about how Greater in Tech started and kind of like my journey even to engineering. So I'm starting to pop up in a few different places and meet people, but I'm primarily in San Diego doing that.
Got you. And you're still working for Collins, right, Raytheon?
Still working
So
for
this is
Collins.
all like in your spare time. This is what I'm talking about, everybody.
Thank you
When
for.
you're listening to Jasmine, you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, all these things she's doing that full time." This is
Yeah.
not her day job. Like, okay, so this is in her spare time, and just like it's almost mind-blowing all the things you're able to achieve and accomplish with Dr. Wheeler and your other partners to make all of this happen for people. So wow, I don't know where you find the energy,
I mean,
honestly.
I do have to say, it's great working for Collins Aerospace because, Dr. Brittany Wheeler and I, we met there. We were employee resource group leaders. In a lot of ways, we were doing this type of work. But Collins Aerospace sees that, and they're also a big piece of like why Greater Than Tech is successful. So we've had funding from them. We've had some of our colleagues be able to come to our programs as volunteers. So like in a lot of ways, I think I'm this representation of work-life integration where the bills and the passion can coexist and I can do it all.
Well, that's great, and that's our other podcast, right? The Tech Industry Leadership Talks. We'll talk to you about that later. But Sheila asks, and I don't think you're going to get to go, but I'm going to ask anyway because Sheila wants to know out there. Are you going to the Commercial UAV Expo here coming up early September?
You know what? I think someone just sent me a note about that. All right. It's not in work yet, but something I'm interested in learning more about.
Well, we would love to have you come, and so again, connect with me offline. Maybe I can get you there, at least the pass or whatever. Obviously, Sheila, she's not going to have a booth, but maybe you'll see Jasmine wandering around the floor. But absolutely, Women in Drones will have a booth this year, so join us there. We'll be Marlene Dials, actually from the Diversity Development Network of Canada, DDNC, will be there. Also, we'll have our scan code for the survey, for the industry diversity survey. We hope you'll stop by the booth, meet us, and take that survey. And so that's good. All right, we've got like a minute left, Jasmine. So I'm going to let the floor be yours to kind of wrap this up for us and leave folks with anything you want to tell them.
Okay, on the spot again. I mean, one, I just want to say thank you so much, Don, and thank you to Volatus Aerospace for sponsoring me and also just giving me the opportunity to share, being able to meet so many great people in the drone space. So appreciate that. But I guess also, you know, just want to leave with being able to think about how capabilities and potential show up in different ways for different students. I would love being able to work with students who may not have the resources to know about STEM in the home. So like being able to see the type of possibilities that someone for the first time can actually think of. And it's just mind blowing to see how much like potential they have and they haven't been able to utilize those type of skill sets in their lives. So like, I guess I leave people with, you know, potentials and capabilities shows up in different ways, and don't be afraid to uncover those rocks to find it.
No, so true. You know, I think so many recruiters look for quote unquote experience, but it's really those personal qualities that matter, right? You know, whether it's, I think as Anna talked about in our very first episode this month, they're looking for curiosity, you know, when they interview people. So it makes sense if you're in STEM and tech, right, to have those kind of personal qualities. So very cool. Well, thank you again, Jasmine, for everything you do. Thank you, everybody out there, for jumping in the chat today. Appreciate you, and absolutely connect with Jasmine. Check out her website. So much going on there. Connect with Greater Than Tech. And thank you again, Volatus and Skydio today. Also want to say next week, well, tomorrow on our Clubhouse, and then of course this same time next week, we have two amazing people. We've got Marcy Eisenberg from the Accelerate Unmanned Center of Excellence in Leesburg, Virginia, and Chris Robertson from Colorado State University's Drone Center. I call this kind of the East and West Training Centers episode. And so they're going to be joining us on Clubhouse tomorrow at 1 p.m. You want to check that out. And then, of course, they'll both be on this podcast next week to hear it at that kind of collegiate and higher level of and kind of business company level, what these folks are doing out in Colorado and in Virginia. So it's going to be great. And that's how we end this month. So thanks again, Jasmine. Thanks everybody out there. That's all she wrote, and we are out here.
Thank you.